Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for coming today. I am here with TJ, a target test prep student who recently scored a 770 on his GMAT. So he rocked the GMAT. Super pumped to be able to talk to TJ today. Welcome, TJ.
Thanks, Jeff.
Um, I want to get into TJ's journey through target test prep, through the GMAT, but I thought it would be helpful today to start out by going through some finer points of target test prep first, so you guys have some context onto what TJ did across his GMAT journey. So I want to just do a quick screen share with everybody so you can take a look at the TTP course and get a feel for how it's laid out, and then you'll have a really good idea of the things that TJ did and of course enjoyed as he was using target test prep. So the cool thing about TJ's story is that he actually used target test prep from start to finish, which is really, really cool. Um, as TJ had mentioned, and he'll talk more about this, he did need a lot of quant help to get from start to finish. Now, target test prep is quant and verbal. So a lot of people are using it for both. TJ happened to use us for quant. Now, what I'm sure TJ did, and again, he'll get into it with everybody, is he most likely followed our study plan. Our study plan is really cool because it has everything you need to follow and to achieve your score goal. And the study plan itself is based on the score goal you need. My guess is that TJ followed our most challenging track, which is the Expert Plus track, which brings you to a score of 49 plus on quant, and that's the goal. So everything revolves around that score goal. And if you look through the study plan, you see that we have various missions. Some are broken up between quant and verbal. Some are verbal only. Some are quant only. Some are verbal only as well. And when you get into them, we tell you what to do, the order of when to do them. You see here we have lessons from GMAT Quant skills. We then follow that with chapter tests. We then tell you to review your mistakes, which are in an error log, and you rinse and repeat this process. And as you're doing it, we also incorporate review tests. One of the things that students always ask, and again, TJ can probably attest to this soon, that they forget things. So when you get to certain places in our course, you see that we have review tests. This is a review, and then you follow it up with a review test. And this is what's called the learning phase of our course. And you do this all the way through until you get to the practice test phase where you start to really practice MBA.com practice exams and see how your skills stack up when you're actually doing real tests. There is a lot more to the course beyond the study plan, but this is a good kind of overview of what our students are following and really a big part of why they're finding success. We've spent many, many hours and done very thorough analysis of what our students are doing and what they need to be doing to achieve their score goals. So this is a really cool part about target test prep and a really cool thing that I'm sure TJ was using. So without further ado, I want to get into TJ's story, and so you guys can learn a little bit about what he did to achieve GMAT success. So to start, TJ, I guess let's talk about your background a little bit. Why don't you tell everyone a little bit more about yourself?
Cool. Hey, everybody. My name is TJ. I am a healthcare IT professional. I work primarily in project management for digital healthcare and electronic medical record systems. I work currently at Stanford Health in the Bay Area. And I'm seeking an MBA because I want to start my own digital health company to address some of the more preventive healthcare needs rather than reactive. So in a nutshell, that means we're really good as a society at making people better when they get sick. I want to focus on those factors that keep people from getting sick in the first place and try and figure out how we can work that in a profitable manner so that insurance companies will be good about reimbursing them. So that's my goal, is to learn some marketing and entrepreneurship skills through my MBA, that'll allow me to start that company.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, I think a 770 is gonna help you get to that place sooner rather than later. So let's talk about your GMAT journey a little bit. So when did you start your journey, and how did it start specifically?
Yeah, so I started my GMAT journey about a year and a half ago. So in spring of 2020, I started, looking into studying for the GMAT, and I had bought the original, the official guides, and I knew that like it would be a good idea to figure out where I was with all of the studying, and so I took the first diagnostic test in the official guide, and I couldn't get through like the first like 15 questions. It was
Yeah.
it was insane. Like I had forgotten all of my math skills. Not that I ever had many to begin with, but um, I had forgotten everything about math, and I really, I was completely lost. I was frustrated, and there wasn't a whole lot that I could do about it with the guide itself, because it's definitely useful for what it is, but it's just a book, and I don't necessarily uh, learn very well just studying out of a book, and I knew that I had a very long way to go. Um, so I started looking at different prep courses, and Target was talked about a lot on Reddit, and my buddy had used it, who had applied a couple of years prior. So I decided, let's give it a shot, because I knew that I could do the trial. And so I tried that out. And so, about from June of last year through June of this past year, 21. That's how long I spent preparing
That's good.
exclusively for the quant section. So I did like 2 hours a day for a year, getting my math skills back up to par.
Yeah, I mean, that's impressive. I think that's an important thing for people to hear, because I think many people watching right now and who will watch may find themselves in the position where they're trying to do a lot in a little period of time. So they may get to the GMAT and say, you know what, I need a 750 plus, and I need it in 3 months,
Hmm.
and that's how it has to be. And the problem is that sometimes it's just not enough time. And so what you did was fantastic. It's not to say that everybody needs a year, but you gave yourself a really nice chunk of time, and you worked hard consistently, which is great. I mean, 2 hours a day for a year is awesome. And you got to your score goals. So that should really be a learning lesson for everybody out there. Especially given the fact, I mean, you guys heard what TJ said. I believe when you said the diagnostic, you meant that in the OG, the first 15 questions, you got blown away by them, but yet you said, okay, I'm going to work from the ground up, which is obviously how you discovered target test prep, and it worked. So you guys really need to listen to that. I think that's some of the most poignant advice, TJ could provide about this stuff. Um, Now, did you take a practice test early on, or did you wait, or did you not take any until you got to the practice phase of the course?
Yeah, I didn't take any until I finished the entire course, because every section that I would do, I was once again starting from nothing. And if I had taken any of the practice exams before I finished, like the last third
Right.
or quarter of the course, I would have just missed all of those questions. So I didn't think that there was really a point to doing so.
Okay. Yeah, no, I totally agree. That's super cool. I mean, honestly, that means you were probably in like the 400 range. I mean, well, in quant, you were probably in the
Yeah,
20 something range, let's say. Your verbal seems like it was great to begin with. So yeah, I mean, that means you basically had over a double in your quant score if we're estimating here, which is like amazing. I mean, you're
yeah.
going from looking at the page as if it's in Greek, and then being able to come on test day and totally rock the GMAT. So awesome, awesome work on your part. Um, Another question. So you obviously, TTP was recommended, like you said. You saw us on Reddit as well, and what people had recommended. The one thing that I love, well, I love many things about the course, but one thing that I really love is our 5-day trial. And I love it because it's full access and it's for 5 days. That's a lot. A lot of time for you or anyone to discover the course. So, how impactful was it? I mean, beyond the fact that it was recommended, beyond the fact that you kind of trusted it before you went into it, but how impactful was the fact that were able to get in and see the course with your own eyes for 5 days, see the study plan that I showed everybody and stuff like that? Was that super helpful for you as you kind of made your decisions on how to move forward?
Oh yeah, I mean that was a huge deal. I probably would not have only checked out Target if I hadn't had the opportunity to actually get into the course before committing to paying, whatever it is for like the three. I was in for the long haul, so I got like
Right. Yes,
the
that's
longest
the
version.
important.
But so I also have my PMP, my project management professional certification, and before I took the GMAT, like for a year before that, I had been studying for like 4 or 5 months for the PMP, and I took a similar style course that also let me have a trial period. And so that's kind of what I look for uh, in test prep courses at this point.
Right.
If I can get in there and like get my hands dirty, of course I'm going to do that versus not knowing what I'm getting into and committing to um, paying full price for a product that I got to rely on other people's experience for.
Right, right. Totally. Yeah, exactly. And that's why we do it. I mean, the fact is like we want everybody with their own eyes to see how impactful the course can be, and really the only way to do that is to provide it is to provide full access so you can truly see it. Um Now, it's safe to say, I mean, you use the course for 2 years, so my get or excuse me, 1 year, not 2.
Yeah.
Um you did you follow the study plan? Was that kind of your guide? You went from start to finish following the study plan and doing all that we asked you to do mission by mission?
Yep, I didn't skip anything. And when you guys added new material, I'd go back and finish it before I went on to the the next thing. Because I was like, oh, I missed something.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, that's
Um,
good.
yeah,
That
I thought it was well laid out and appropriately paced. Um, I know you were talking about the review tests. That was a big help for me because, like you said, I was learning everything for the second time, but like I just don't have a math oriented brain. This was like a huge
right.
hurdle for me to overcome in order to take like the verbal section. I knew that I had to get like a good score on both. So the review tests and the review chapters really helped me in that regard, to kind of make sure that I was keeping and retaining all the knowledge that I was gaining in each section before that, and having a review, quiz every time, every chapter, and then a review test every like 3 chapters. That was really good for me and my personal style of learning.
Yeah, I agree. I think I mean, look, there's so much information you need to learn for the test. I tell this to people all the time. I mean, we can talk about quant. Um, when you have such a limited number of questions that are asked on the GMAT, right? Very limited. And you have so many topics, and not just big topics, not like number properties as a topic and rates as a topic, but subtopics and granular topics like unit digit patterns, and then subtopics within unit digit patterns. Not only do you have to know the patterns of 3, 7, 2, etc., but you have to know, for example, that 3 raised to a power that is a multiple of 4 ends in a 1. Um, or you need to know average rates and converging rates. So you can't really spin the roulette wheel and say, I'm going to just get lucky and the stuff I know I'm going to be asked, because you never know what you're going to be asked. And I find people a lot asking, well, what are the main topics I need to know? And it doesn't necessarily work like that. Sure, you can get lucky, but why this is such an important test. I mean, we've heard about what you want to do in the future. You getting into the right school by getting the right GMAT score is so important. So leaving that up to luck seems not something that we would want to do.
Yeah. I gotta say also, from my perspective, I actually didn't get lucky on my
Oh,
GMAT questions. I had a lot of questions from like my weakest chapters. And also I have such bad test anxiety. It's really bad. I only took the GMAT once, and I'm not gonna take it again,
oh yeah,
obviously. But
right.
I didn't sleep at all the night before, so I go into the test. I'm bleary eyed. I'm like, got a venti like cup of coffee and 2 shots of espresso. Like my hands are jittery, like going in, and then they throw a whole bunch of these problems at me that I'm not very good at. The ones that I like kind of struggled with were like work and rate problems. I know that
Hmm.
they're formulaic once you do enough of them, but
Right,
to my brain that was like racing, it was hard to get you know get it all straight in my head and figure out, okay, well, step by step, what is this going to be? Those just take me a while because I have to do them visually,
right,
drawing out like the diagrams and stuff.
right. The Matrix.
So I actually did worse on the real GMAT in quant than I did on any of my practice tests. I got a 48 on the GMAT itself in quant, and I had gotten at least a 49 or better on the other on
Right.
all 5 of my practice tests. But not a big deal. I did the best in verbal that I had done, so I'm fine.
Yeah. Well, I would say, it's interesting because there's levels of how anxiety can crush a GMAT, right? So just the fact that you were nervous, the fact that you were shaking, the fact that you probably thought at certain points it was a disaster, a lot of times, like subconsciously, and feel better on the inside than it's showing on the outside. So clearly you knew some stuff, and you pulled it together. And a Q48, given that Q51 is the highest quant score, is is still awesome. So yeah, I mean, all things considered, I think that's a really fantastic achievement. um Going back to the study plan a little bit, it's interesting, starting from scratch, knowing nothing. Like, what would have you done? Like, how, just in general, like the fact that we have a study plan that guides you through the course. I mean, how important was that for you, in the sense that if you didn't have that, do you feel like you would have been able to navigate GMAT Quant at all, or do you feel like your study would have just basically been a disaster over the course of that year?
Um, that is a little bit of a loaded question because I'm sure that I would have, if I went into studying for the GMAT and I like really had absolutely no idea what to do or like where to start, I'm sure I would have just spent the time to like go online and research it. And
Hmm.
I can say that the course, the way that the course was laid out, worked very well for me. It took away that planning that I would have had to do otherwise. Um, but like I said, I've got a ton of test anxiety, and I would not have gone into the GMAT. I would not have like studied for it in a way that I could tell was inefficient. I wouldn't have gone in without getting my practice test scores to that point. Uh, but it was nice because I didn't have to think about that. I
Yeah.
didn't have to think about what topics to cover in my studying, or like which ones to go first, or how knowledge builds on itself throughout the GMAT quant section. I think Target does a very good job of using the consecutive lessons to continue building on the concepts that you learn earlier in the course. So that was definitely helpful.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's really cool to hear, and that's how it was designed. Um, and it's interesting. We alluded to this earlier. You studied for an entire year. You trusted in the process. You trusted in target test prep. Um, did you understand that going through the study plan was going to take you a personal amount of time? Meaning, the study plan has everything laid out in the order it needs to be laid out in, and then you have to learn it and digest it. So it seems like you accepted the fact, like, look, this is the material I got to learn. I'm going to go at my own pace. I'm going to make sure it's mastered, and I'm not going to look back. I mean, was that kind of the attitude that you took going through the course?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I work full time and I already knew that, it was going to take as long as it was going to take. And is it more important to me to, get the GMAT done way sooner and then maybe apply in round 2 or 3 to some schools that maybe are less competitive, or if I really wanted to, you know, I wouldn't have been able to maximize my score with the time that I had, so I would have had to accept a lower score. And is it more important to me to, um, not get into my dream school because I wanted to do it faster, or just wait a little bit longer and get into the schools that I want to get into? Now, knock on wood, obviously, I haven't. I just submitted
Well,
my first few applications, so I have no idea if or where I'll get in. I'm
right.
hopeful that I'll get into one of my top choices, but we'll see. Point being, by giving myself that time to prepare, I definitely opened the door to possibly getting into the schools I want to get into, and that's worth it to me. I mean, waiting another year. I'm 30 years old now, and I know that I'm a little bit older than the average MBA applicant, but that's not a huge deal to me. I'd rather go where I'm dreaming of going, and so the time it took was just a factor.
Yeah, I mean, that's such important advice. I said it at the beginning of the interview, and I'll just continue to reiterate it. Like, for everybody here, anyone who watches the recording of this interview, like, just know you got to put yourself in a position for success. You can't rush the process. If you need a year, you need a year. If you need 6 months, you need 6 months. And you just have to work at your own pace. I mean, in general, but especially with target test prep and going through the study plan, and you'll get a feel for what your pace is as you work through the course. I'm sure by the time you got to mission 5 or 6, you kind of had an idea of, okay, this is how long it's probably going to take me. I'm also getting better as I work through the course, and so things are starting to get faster as they need to, because I'm building, as you said, we build on skills. And so as you get to the lower half of the course, you're better than when you were at the upper half of the course. Um, so that's really good to hear. And it's advice that I'll, scream from the mountaintops for forevermore for anyone studying for the GMAT. Um, I guess other things I'm curious about. What were the things in TTP that you think kind of helped you the most? Like, what features? What kind of, beyond the study plan? What are some things that you really felt aided in your journey as you were working through TTP and preparing for the GMAT?
Yeah, I'm a real like visual learner. So the videos, the explanations, and breakdowns of all the steps were really helpful. The fact that you have an answer video for each question, but you also have the written down steps, so I can watch the video on how to solve it, and then if I need to like reference the physical steps and what the video is highlighting, I can do that as well. Um, that was really helpful for me. As I mentioned before, the review tests and review chapters were very helpful to just keep all of the information in my head. Um, I also thought I did a lot of like the question randomizer
Oh, the
from
custom tests.
yeah, the custom test from
Yeah.
using the analytics to figure out where my weak points were, and then use those weak points to draw questions and put together tests. I would get like 60%, 65% on those tests, but by doing them over and over, I was increasing my score on the other tests from like, you know 80% to like 85%, or it was just small increments, but
Oh, I think that TJ might have gotten kicked off here for a second. So, till he gets back on, I'll do something that I was actually. Oh, here's TJ.
sorry, I don't know what happened. I got kicked out somehow.
That was quick turnaround to get back on. All right. So yeah, you were in the middle of talking about your custom test accuracy.
Yeah. Um, so I don't know what the last thing you guys heard was, but basically, like doing the custom tests, um, even if I would get like 65% or something on a custom test built up of all of my weak points, doing those over and over would bump up my review tests and my overall test accuracy, by a few points. And it's the incremental steps that really helped. At no point was I reading a lesson and suddenly had everything click for me, and it's like, a genius moment where I know how to solve everything. That never happened. It was just a constant slog uphill of learning all of these concepts and just doing them over and over and making mistakes and trying not to repeat the same mistakes, like identifying the mistakes I was making, and then slowly cutting those mistakes out. Sure, I'd make new ones later on, but as long as I kept on doing the tests and reading the steps on how to do it and watching the videos, I figured it out and I stopped making the same mistakes over and over. So that was definitely helpful.
Yeah, custom tests are really cool. And just, again, context wise, I was about to show that because I wasn't sure when you were getting back on.
Yeah, go
But
ahead.
you made it. I just want to show you guys because, yeah, the custom tests are super cool. And this is what TJ is referring to. So what we have now, we create custom tests for you on the back end of the study plan in the practice test phase. But if a student like TJ ever wants to come and build a custom test, well, you have your quant question banks. You get to choose from difficulty, and you get to choose from chapter, and then you get to choose the total number of questions. And then you can do these cool preferences like questions you bookmark, only questions you haven't seen, only DS, only PS, only ones you've gotten wrong, only ones that you struggle with timing on. And then, you can do the same with verbal. And we added in this really cool thing too, which you may or may not have known about, TJ, but we have practice mode where you can see an explanation after each question. So if you want to just be in a place where you're kind of doing one question, seeing the solution and moving on, you have that option here. So that's what TJ is referring to. It's a very powerful tool, especially when you get to the end of TTP and as TJ said, you're trying to find weaknesses. And you're absolutely right, TJ. You get to a place where you're like, okay, it's almost like whack-a-mole, where you fix one weak area and then another one pops up and then another one pops up, but you fix that. And that's just, to me, that's just GMAT studying. And you'll get to as close as perfect as you can be by test day. But if you have weak areas, like, that's normal. So anyone out there listening to that, you're never going to be perfect, and you have to know that, going into the GMAT. So the other thing worth asking about, TJ, is, okay, so you followed the study plan, 2 hours a day, get through the missions, get through the learning phase. How did you handle the end of your prep when you got into the practice test phase? How did all that go for you? What was the timeline like for that?
I left a little more than a month between the actual test and when I finished the course. So I was doing one practice exam per week, and then I would spend that week reviewing the test, my weak points, and then taking practice quizzes based on like the custom stuff for the areas that I missed. So I did 5 of the 6 practice tests, the official practice tests in total. I felt that was really, really helpful. I mean, the more times you do it, the more comfortable you are with doing it. The first time I took one, I hadn't done a practice exam the entire time I was studying. So I remember, like, at the break point in between quant and verbal, I go outside. My girlfriend's playing with the dog outside, and I'm like, "Oh my God, babe, I'm never getting into an MBA program. I suck so bad. Like, this, this was really, this was a horrible experience, and I got them all wrong." And then, on that practice exam, I got a 760. But the whole time I thought I was failing, because I hadn't had that experience of knowing, like, really how many questions can you get wrong, how,
Right.
like, what like level of acuity do I have to the mistakes that I'm actually making? Like, am I actually making mistakes, or is it that I'm taking educated guesses on some questions, then feeling bad because I took those educated guesses? This is a point where I want to call out the strategy sections that you guys put in Target.
Oh yeah.
I think the strategy of, especially for the questions. I'm sorry, I can't even remember the name of them right now. The ones where it's like choose like
Combinations and permutations.
yeah,
Mhm.
combinations, permutations. Like basically, like I thought I had missed all of those, and the strategy for like narrowing down which answers it could have been probably got my accuracy up, like, from obviously like 20% if I'm just guessing to 50% if I can narrow down the choices. So that's definitely useful. So yeah, that was my strategy with the practice exams. Take as many as you can. If it's feasible, I mean, just getting the experience and taking them makes the real thing so much more routine and less scary, or at
Right.
least it did for me.
Yeah, well, you bring up a good point. There's the mental side of it, right? So this isn't a test of, okay, I got X number wrong, so here's my score, which is what most of us are used to, right?
Hmm.
Um, and there's no way, and we say this actually in the strategy chapter as well. You never want to try to self-reflect in the middle of your GMAT. So,
No.
and you did that on your practice exam, so you got that out of your system, right? Um, because if you think you're getting crushed, then and you take that mental, and then that crushes you then mentally, you're going to go downhill from there. Um, but what probably happened is, yes, A, you were taking some educated guesses in some cases, and B, you were just getting harder and harder questions because you were doing better and better. But it's this weird psychology because you're thinking, oh my gosh, this looks so hard. But what you're not realizing is, wait a minute, this is so hard because I'm doing so well. And then
Hmm.
the questions you are getting wrong are usually, 700 plus level questions. So net is you end up doing pretty damn good on the test, even though in real time you were thinking you weren't. So if I had, a penny for $1 for every time I heard someone say, man, I thought I was getting crushed, and then they, say, hey, I got a 770, I got a 750, whatever,
Hmm.
I'd be a pretty rich man. So it's crazy, but it's an interesting thing. And so going into the test knowing like, hey, okay, I got to stay calm. I can't try to guess where I'm at. Especially because there's breaks. Like you said, I mean, this was perfect. You went out, I mean, you can't, well, I guess you kind of can do it in the GMAT. You're just not going out on the yard. But
Hmm.
um, in between sections, if you go and take a break, throw water on your face, use the restroom, and you're thinking in your head, man, I just got clobbered, whatever. I'll finish this up. And you do that, it's possible you could do really bad in the next section, get your score, and realize, holy crap, I actually did really good on the first section and bad on the second or the next one, between quant and verbal, because mentally you just checked out. So it's really good advice, actually, to be careful and to not, psych yourself out. So, yeah, totally agree. On the study plan, we say take the 6 MBA.com practice exams. I think those are great. A month is a pretty good chunk of time for you. If you took 5 tests, I mean, you roughly probably gave, almost one every 5 days or something, which isn't too bad. Um, so yeah, I think that's important. Don't take two and then go take the GMAT. Like, you really, I mean, assuming that you're doing everything right up to that point, try to take, 5 or 6 tests, or all of them if you can, so you're fully prepared. Um, so yeah, that's very good advice. Now we will open things up to questions. I see there's some already here that I'll go through. Do you have any, other kind of parting advice about, people watching this and their journey? Anything that you think could really help and motivate them?
Yeah. So I think everybody's got a different study style, but one of the things to keep in mind, or at least one of the things I can only speak from my own experience, but one of the things that I had to keep in mind was the fact that some days were going to be better than others. And if I was sitting in front of my computer just studying for an hour and I was getting nowhere and I was mentally checked out, I wasn't going to get a whole lot of progress done that day. So, you know, maybe I needed to take a break. I think a lot of people put a ton of pressure on themselves to do well on this test. Like while you're studying for it, it seems like the most important thing in the world. But it's also important to keep yourself like mentally healthy and try and take breaks when you need them. If you need to take a day or even 2 days and step away from the GMAT for a little bit, hang out, like go for a hike or just watch TV or go to the movies or something, whatever makes you happy. You should do that and then come back and be refreshed. And then other days, you might feel like you're crushing it. And just I certainly had days where I thought I was going to sit down, do 2 hours of studying, and that was it. And then like 4 hours later, I'm like, I am on a roll. I'm just going to keep going right now. And it balances out. So I think that that's something to keep in mind is like don't kill yourself studying for this test. There are more important things out there, and your mental health is definitely one of them. So um, give yourself a little bit of leniency while you're studying.
Yeah, I mean that's great advice. I mean it's a microcosm for life, right? I mean if you get stressed out, there's a reason why people take vacations and clear their
Hmm.
head, and it's no different with the GMAT. If you find that you're in a place where you're just unable to kind of put one foot in front of the other, yeah, give yourself 24, 48 hours, a weekend, whatever it may be, so that you can come back refreshed and ready to do some really great work. So that is awesome advice. So yeah, thank you. So let's get into some of these questions. Um, well, this first one is for you, TJ, just asking about the number of years of work experience that you have.
Yeah, I'm 30 years old, so I've been working for about 9 years.
Okay, there you go. This is well, I can also answer this question. And you can answer it first, and I can give my advice. I think you might be able to see it, but I'll read it anyway. What did you do when your accuracy was below the benchmark in the chapter tests?
Yeah, that's a great question. It depends on when the accuracy was below the benchmark. If I'm scoring below benchmark on the easy tests, I need to go back and review the material. The easy test. Well, okay, I should say if I get like a 70 or an 80% on a 10 question easy test and the other ones are all 100%, then that's okay. You can move on. You
Right.
messed up a couple in a row. That's not a huge deal. But if you're consistently scoring below benchmark on easy tests, you missed something in the chapter or it didn't stick right, go back, review the videos, review the lessons, and try and figure out where those weak points are. You can use the analytics from the easy tests in doing so. If you're scoring below the benchmark on the hard tests, I usually kept on going, depending on how low we're talking. If like the hard tests, you should be getting 60% or higher, I believe. So if I'd get like 50 or 55% on those, like one or two of them, I'd just keep on going on to the next chapter and make a point to come back to those questions in that material and study it again as I kept going. In that case, the momentum was more important uh, than making sure I was able to get all of these questions right all the time. Um, but typically, it would just mean like spend more time practicing it until you can get it up to where you want it to be. Use the custom test creator so that you're not taking the same test over and over, because that's not really a great measure
Right.
of whether or not you're improving. It means you're improving at solving the specific questions that you already learned how to solve. So,
Right.
keep testing yourself on the same material.
Yeah, no, you're right. And in fact, we usually advise like, hey, wait a few days at least so you don't have the answers memorized. And to your point about being able to move on, it's very simple. You can either bookmark a question, you can add it to your error tracker. So there's ways you can come back and see that question and almost redo it in isolation. rather than redoing the full test. So I think what you did was really great. Um, you kind of mentioned this, but someone asked about your performance on the practice exams. What were you? I mean, we know you got a 770 on the GMAT. What were your scores on your NBA.com practice exams?
I got a 760, then a 770. Then I got a 730, but I was sick that week, so I was really like not super checked into it. And then I got a 760 and a 770. So it was pretty right on the money for the real score. I was very happy to get the 770 on the real thing because that's as high as I've ever scored.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's always exciting when you even beat your because everyone always, is like, well, I did this on practice test, so I'm going to be 20 points lower, but it's not always like that. And
hmm
you clearly showed that. Um, did you take it online, or I think you took it at the test center? Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah, I kind of have a unique situation. Like I said, I took the PMP exam for my project management certification a few years back in 2019. So I was familiar with that testing center, and they say to take the test wherever you're comfortable. So if you're
Right.
comfortable at home and being at home isn't gonna distract you or throw you off, maybe go ahead and take it at home. For me, I know that I was familiar with this testing center. I knew what the protocols were. I knew what the room looked like. I knew what I was getting into. I'm a very easily distractible person, and I have my girlfriend and the dog that live here with me. So,
Yeah.
additionally, I had heard that some people had issues with their proctors. I don't know how widespread that is, but like some proctors were interrupting the test to say, "Hey, like, let me see your hands," or like, "Move the camera this way," or
Right.
something like that. Um, Although I'm sure that's not the experience for the majority of people, just the idea that that could happen was enough to make me want to go to a testing center. Uh, we have not mastered yet the art of proctored online tests,
Right.
I think, as a result of COVID. So for me, that was just the right choice.
Yeah, no, and I say that to people. My question is always, where would you feel most comfortable? As you said, you were
hmm
in a good position. You knew the test center well. You live with your girlfriend. There's a dog. I mean, I get that. Dogs don't care when you're taking exams. If they see a squirrel, well, okay, they're going to bark at the squirrel. So yes, I think that was probably a good call.
Uh-huh.
Going to that test center. Now, the next question. I know you use TTP exclusively. Did you practice OG questions as well?
Not really. I cracked the book a few times. Like I I think at one point I was in the car and I wanted to study like on a long trip, and so I brought the book with me to just like do a few questions because I didn't have internet access. But if I'm being honest, I really didn't use it that much after that first diagnostic. Maybe I just got a little I got a little angry at the book and put it away for good. Who knows?
Right. Okay. No, that's super cool, man. That you just use TTP through and through. Um, Now the next question I can answer. This is something I mentioned a bunch in the interview, and I'll reiterate it. So, is the study plan based on the number of hours you can dedicate, or a standard number of months? So, if you haven't been here the whole time, I definitely encourage you to listen to the whole interview so you can see what TJ accomplished and how long it took him to accomplish. The cliff notes are that he studied for a year, he learned from the ground up, and he put in the time, and he put in the time he needed to study. He didn't come into this saying, well, I have to be done in 3 months. He worked at his own pace. So that would be my response to this question is that you do need to work at your own pace. You obviously want to work hard and stay motivated, but no one can really tell you an exact amount of time of how long it takes you to get through something. If we did, the kind of fear is you're doing things based on what someone else is telling you, not based on what you actually need. And that's, to TJ's success, he did what he needed to do. He knew people who had used target test prep before, and I'm sure if he tried to replicate their plan, he would have been less successful. So you just got to make sure that you're working at your own pace and doing everything that you need to succeed. The next question, what are the study resources that I recommend to increase from 710 to 750? Well, both TJ and myself will confidently say target test prep. TJ scored a 770 using our course exclusively. So that's exactly what I would also tell you to use.
Yeah, and I did a little testimonial for you guys, and I saw one of the comments on it was something like, "Whatever, this guy's just a paid actor. He's commercial. Like this is a commercial for Target." I want to assure everybody, I'm very much a real person. I did just use Target Test Prep, and the reason that I'm so happy to endorse it is because I really felt like it was a good material for me. Uh, it may not be the ideal solution for everybody. Maybe you're better just like studying out of the book. I can't speak to that. What I can speak to is that the layout of the study material and the comprehensive list of questions and chapters, as well as the fact that you guys are constantly adding new stuff. I really appreciated that. It showed that you guys were committed to keeping your material competitive and up to date with the actual test itself. And I would go back and see that like 3 new lessons had been added over a weekend or something like that, like extensions on a chapter that I had finished 3 months ago. And I'd go back and be like, oh, cool, that's a new way of like studying or looking at these problem types that I hadn't thought of before. So it was definitely helpful.
Yeah, no, you're right. At that time, we were fixing some things up and improving things. So yeah, we're always taking a holistic view at the materials. Another good question is about advice for working professionals studying for the GMAT, which is most people, I would presume. Do you have any advice for someone working full time?
For me, it was a lot of like work-life balance. I wanted to make sure that not only was I able to study effectively and I wasn't super tired from work or like, having studying impact my job performance. Not only that, but I also wanted to make sure that I still had a life, that I was able to do the things that I love. So for me, it was identifying like how much time can I reasonably expect to spend without burning myself out. I work normally like 8 to 5, but as a project manager, it could be, anywhere across the board. If I have a go live, I could be working, 3 p.m. to like 1 a.m. If it's in the emergency room or something like that. So it was just about finding a healthy balance. For me, that was about 2 hours a day, and then on the weekends, I might do like 4 or 5 hours, but then prioritize my own life as well. I might wake up early, like 7 or 8, and then put in some studying until noon, and then decide, all right, now I'm going to go rock climbing, or I'm going to go to a concert, or whatever it is. Well, I guess actually I didn't go to a lot of concerts because COVID, but what I normally would be doing, like play guitar or something like that. So yeah, I think figure out for professionals doing this, figure out how much time you have, and don't figure it out based on how much free time you have. It's like, how much time do you have to reasonably devote to this, where you're not going to hate your life, where you're not going to burn yourself out, and where you can retain the information. You don't want to be starting when you're like exhausted from work. So if it works better for you to wake up earlier and get your studying out of the way at the beginning of the day, maybe go to bed a little bit earlier. You should be getting a lot of good sleep. That's another point of advice. Just make sure that you found something that works.
Yeah, no, that's awesome advice. It goes back to everyone being in their own unique situation and understanding when you do things best, whether it's before work, whether it's after work, whether it's taking advantage of the weekends. I mean, everybody's situation is different. So that's fantastic advice. So yeah, with that said, I think we covered our bases here with these questions. One more. When are we going to include reading comp? We are working on reading comprehension now, and we're hoping that it will be up in the next few months. So we are working our absolute hardest on it. All right, TJ. Well, I want to thank you for doing this. It's a little bit earlier your time since you're on the West Coast. But
Hmm.
I thought that your advice and insight into your GMAT, into target test prep was amazing. Congrats again on your 770. I have all the faith in the world that you will get into one of the M7s, if not many. So good luck with your apps. For everybody here, you can sign up for Target Test Prep. We have a $1 full access trial, so I welcome everybody to check it out. And that's it. So thank you again, TJ.
Thank you for having me, and good luck, everybody.
Yep. Good luck, everybody, and we'll talk to you guys soon.